here come the dollies. They got fresh sinkers, hot coffee, and the sweetest smile.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Clubmobile. We're so glad that you decided to join us once again.
Good morning, everyone.
If you're not sick of us yet, we're happy to have you here. And joining us today is Sarah Morgan. If you are on Instagram and in the circle of women's history, then you probably are following Sarah from Cooking with the First Ladies. Sarah, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
We're glad to have you here.
Yeah, very excited. This is something that, while we have researched it, it's not something that we have really learned about fully. So could you begin by telling us a little bit about the Manhattan Project and the Ladies of Oak Ridge?
Absolutely. It's like literally my favorite thing. I really have now focused mostly on my Cooking with the Calutron Girls part of my whole project. But a lot of people don't know about Oak Ridge. A lot of people really associate the Manhattan Project, of course, with like Oppenheimer and Los Alamos. But Oak Ridge, Tennessee was actually the very first site chosen for the Manhattan Project back in 1942. And it was supposed to really only, that was supposed to be the only site, actually. But they quickly realized that they couldn't enrich enough uranium specifically to create that fuel for the bomb. So they branched out to Los Alamos and then Hanford, Washington. So Oak Ridge actually didn't exist really prior to the Manhattan Project. It was just a city that like sprung up overnight. So the people that moved there very much lived in really crazy conditions, housing shortages. It was really muddy. So they very much really awesomely signed up for this amazing project. They didn't know what they were doing for the most part. Most people weren't high level enough clearance to even know what they were working on, which specifically the Calutron Girls, they had one of the most important jobs in the secret city. They worked on the Calutron machines. They sat there, turned the dial, made sure it was where it was supposed to be. And after the bomb was dropped, they learned that they were enriching the uranium. So there's all these very young ladies, these Calutron girls, they were all like 18, early 20s, a lot of them right from here in East Tennessee. And they were excited to have a job and to be making money. Yeah. And so they actually got hired over male scientists in order to do this particular job because the male scientists actually asked too many questions. And that was the number one thing that you didn't do, was talk about your job and question it too much. So yeah. But Oak Ridge was definitely pivotal in the Manhattan Project. They, like I said, uranium enrichment is their main focus there in the secret city. And that was the fuel that went to the Little Boy bomb, which was the bomb dropped on Hiroshima, which we actually just had the anniversary of the bombing. It's been 80 years. So in Oak Ridge, I'm not sure when y'all post this, but on August 6th, they have a ceremony every year. There's a International Friendship Bell in A.K. Bissell Park there in the city, and it's rung one time for each year. And so this year it was rang 80 times, and you can go and take your turn ringing the bell. It's an extremely powerful experience.
I did see a video of you on Instagram ringing the bell, and I thought it was, I didn't know that they ring it once per, like year, one ring for every year on the anniversary. I think that's very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not very interested, but I find that, you say that the girls took these jobs not knowing what they were doing. And I think that that really speaks to, and I think Winnie would agree with me, really speaks to just the women of the era, like, right, the women of the war. They took these jobs not knowing what they were getting into. They were riveting, they were building planes, and in this case, they were helping build the bomb. These girls
Without knowing.
were basically high school graduates, right? Over physicists to take this job. And I think that
Yeah,
that says a lot about the strength of women during the war.
it really does. It truly does. And just honestly, for me, I think it's amazing that you would take this leap and be so patriotic in wanting to end the war and bring your brothers, husbands, fathers, etc. home. That you would hop on a bus and go to literally the middle of nowhere. Like I said, to this city that like just sprung up.
Right.
People were living in small little houses. They called them semestos. Some people lived in dormitories. You sometimes weren't allowed to live with your husband if you were African American. The men and women, regardless of marital status or having children, could not live together.
Wow.
So it's just amazing, yeah, to think that you would sign up for something like that and really then also just not knowing what you were doing. You just were going, you knew you were supporting the war effort. You, in many cases, well, in all cases, I should say, weren't allowed to discuss it. So it's a really interesting like dynamic of friendships and relationships because your husband would come home from work and you couldn't say, "Hey honey, what'd you do today at the plant?" You just didn't talk about it. And it's amazing that people would do that. It's also just something that will never happen again in history. Something like that project that would be able to be kept so secret,
Right.
and especially in the age of cell phones and
I was just going to say,
media.
not today in the age of social media.
No,
You're
Not.
lucky you can eat dinner without people seeing where you were and what you ate.
yes,
But
absolutely.
Um,
Um,
I wonder. I assume that these women were treated well in their jobs. Were they paid well or were they paid poorly? Was there any benefit apart from their patriotism and knowing that they were essentially helping to win the war, even though they did not know that at the time? Did they have any perks? Was there any like outside fun? I doubt it, because they couldn't talk about it to each other, I assume.
yeah,
Um,
they couldn't talk about it for sure. Um, there's really cool like stories about actually the fun that they did have. There were perks actually. I mean, a lot of women during that time didn't have the opportunity to work, so they were excited to be able to do that. And also they were paid very well, especially for women at the time. In regards to fun, though, it's really cool that this, like I said, city sprung up. They made sure there was recreation, actually, which just last night, actually, I was in Jackson Square, which was one of the main town sites in the city, which had like the grocery store and, kind of a very offshoot of a department store, but also a bowling alley. So that was one of the recreational activities that they did. There's also a pool in Oak Ridge. They call it the Big Pool. It's one of the largest spring-fed pools in the United States. I'm not sure where it lands on that scale, but
amazing.
it's still open. You can
Wow.
still go swim there. It's still a super popular spot. So they had a pool, and they also had tennis court dances. So it
Wow.
was so muddy that they used the tennis courts and they had these dances.
oh,
And they started it off with Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy and ended it with Sleepy Time Gal. And so they had a lot of
Oh,
fun, actually, on their off time. Also, Oak Ridge, as well as the other Los Alamos and those types of things, it was open 24 hours a day because the work never stopped. So, you could go to the grocery store at 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, sort of like you can do today, but It was a round-the-clock city. They kind of equated it to sort of like a Las Vegas type thing. It just
Right.
never shut down.
Mhm.
So it's very cool to read these stories, especially in Cooking Behind the Fence, which is the cookbook that I've been cooking my way through. Um, that just makes it so real and interesting that although they were doing very hard work, long hours, crazy conditions, they still like really look back on it with fond memories and bonded friendships, such as the 43 Club, who compiled this particular cookbook. They were some of the first ladies that moved to the city in 1943, and they were lifelong friends. It's really interesting. Oak Ridge very much has a community feel. It's very different than Los Alamos. A lot of people moved back to wherever they came from, which trying to add in Los Alamos ladies from the cookbook What's Cooking Los Alamos has been really difficult because a lot of them moved. So if you Google, I do a lot of obits. That's all I read. So I come across a lady, I type her in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It usually comes right up. The Los Alamos ladies, it's a little more difficult because a lot of them moved back to wherever they came from, etc. And so it's a little harder. And they don't have these stories like Cooking Behind the Fence does.
Yeah.
Every lady has a little blurb, a story. So that is also what makes it unique. But it's a very unique community still to this day.
Mhm. Was it
It's
essentially like a gated community? Because I know reading about Los Alamos, they essentially locked them in. They couldn't even go to the grocery store.
yeah, I was just
Um,
gonna say it sounds like it was almost like an army base
yeah.
where you had to have clearance to come in and out, and like they lived in that particular property.
Yes, absolutely. So that's where Los Alamos and Oak Ridge differ a little bit.
Hmm.
Los Alamos did have a lot of the bigger name scientists that were there, like most of the time, like Enrico Fermi, who's basically known kind of as the architect of the atomic bomb,
Right.
and Oppenheimer spent most of his time in Los Alamos. But Los Alamos, yeah, it was definitely gated. They actually really weren't allowed to leave to go out of that particular area. A book that I just started reading, which is Standing By and Making Do, The Women of Los Alamos. And it's written by another lady and also Charlotte Serber, who is kind of a big name there in Los Alamos. But they talk about how it felt like jail, just
Mm.
because you couldn't leave. In Oak Ridge, however, yeah, it was gated. You had to have a badge and clearance to come in and out of the city, but they were allowed to leave. They talk about bus dates to the big city, which would be Knoxville, and yeah, they were allowed to leave. Some people didn't live in the city; they lived in some of the other towns
Hmm.
around, and they bust in. Oak Ridge had the ninth largest bus system in the United States at that time.
Wow.
Tons of buses just bussing people in and out. So although they were allowed to leave, yeah, it was difficult to get in and out. One lady remembers that she forgot to get clearance or authorization for her aunt who was visiting, and her name was Aunt Flo. So I just think that's really cute and really funny. Yeah, but it was kind of a whole thing to get her in and
Oh,
out. So
wow.
I
it
bet.
definitely was an interesting place to live.
Yeah.
I mean, your clearance badge determined,
Hmm.
where you could go, that sort of thing too.
Yeah. I'm really curious to know what intrigued you about this whole subject. What was it that kind of
Yeah.
pulled you in to this specifically?
So I I'm not a chef. I don't have any culinary real background. I went to school. I have a degree in history, and most of my focus was on the 1940s, and especially the Manhattan Project and the Holocaust. As a
Okay.
Jewish person, that just is something that has always been part of history that I've researched and been interested in. And also Tennessee, being here in Tennessee, it's just it's so hard to say. It's I just feel a real connection to Oak Ridge, and I think it's fascinating. Like I was saying earlier, just how big a role a place that a lot of people haven't even really heard a lot about, as well as just women in general, had such a pivotal role.
Mm.
So I think that it just sort of pulled me in because, especially with connecting to some of these untold women's stories, because they're not ladies that you would recognize or that are in a history book, or anything like that. And so I think it really is a neat thing to learn about these ladies who played this really pivotal role, but
Yeah.
most people don't know about
Most
them.
people don't know about
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
And the women did tons of other things, of course, in the secret.
Right.
Calutron Girls, the whole little project name is, of course, just like it sounds cute. But I mean,
Right.
they were homemakers.
Mhm.
They worked at K25, which was one of the other plants. K25 was actually the largest building in the world at the time it was built. You had to ride a bicycle to get from one side to the other, is what they did.
Wow.
Um, and so some of the ladies worked as climbers, as they were known, or leak detectors, is what they were. So they
Mhm.
were kind of like small ladies, and they would climb around and check for leaks. So they did tons of jobs. And even, of course, being a homemaker and a mother was also just pivotal because you were taking care of your family
Right.
and supporting your husband, who were also working on the project as well. And of course, there were female scientists too, who worked on the project and were pivotal. Um, yeah.
I feel like it goes back to something we said. This was I'm talking so many episodes ago about the WASP, where
Mm.
send in the girls, right?
Yeah.
Just these women. I think the more we dig into and find out more about women in the war who maybe never had their face plastered on a history book or weren't in a history book, the more I find out about them, the more I'm in awe of what they did and that they just fearlessly jumped in with both feet and just for patriotism. The pay could have been nothing, right? They did it for patriotism. And I think that's something that I find is getting lost in society today, is that
Yeah.
everybody is more focused on dollar signs versus just doing the right thing. And
Absolutely.
I just wish that not to be sentimental, but I wish that more people would do things for the right reason.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I completely agree.
this is why I feel like Winnie and I are so hard pressed to bring these stories to the forefront, because hopefully it inspires somebody else to do the same thing for the right reason.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
I love it. And that's one reason I'm so uh, thankful to be bringing these stories to people, because just for that reason, it just shows women's resilience and
Mm-hmm.
how um, powerful women
Mm.
are, of course,
Yeah.
and that you even doing a small part, whether it be, like I said, being a homemaker
Right.
and supporting, that you are making a difference and can change the world, basically,
Yeah.
Yeah.
no matter what you're doing, as long as you're doing it and doing it
Right.
for the right reasons, like you said.
That's
I
exactly it. As
I
long
think
as you're
it
doing it.
I think it also, goes back to that they employed women because men wouldn't keep it quiet. I mean, that must have been extremely difficult for the women as well to return home to their husband should he be there, and they cannot discuss a single thing for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also really curious to know what the training process was for these women. Were they just told to sit and fiddle with a dial for 8 hours at a time, or were they given like a more in-depth sort of instruction?
Yeah, they definitely had training. Recently, actually, one of the Oak Ridge has a lot of cookbooks. Actually, Cooking Behind the Fence is kind of this main one, but
Mm.
another one is Oak Ridge Cooks that I came across, and it's not as available. Cooking Behind the Fence, you can buy that at the Oak Ridge History Museum or the American Museum of Science and Energy, but this one was an eBay find. It's not, but it was compiled by the Jewish community in Oak Ridge, and one of the ladies in there started looking into her. Couldn't find out much about her, but her husband was a huge scientist. He helped develop the training for well, they were known as cubicle operators because you weren't going to call them Calutron girls. They were cubicle operators.
Okay.
You'd get kicked out if you started talking about Calutrons. They wouldn't. Yeah, you were not saying that. So they were cubicle operators. But he was very much into the research of uranium enrichment. So they definitely were trained. But I don't know how difficult it was. I haven't totally looked into the science too deep. But one of the ladies, Virginia Coleman, she was kind of over them, and so she was kind of a little high level. So some of the women were also people that knew how the machines worked, and could kind of instruct them in a way. Also, the gentleman I was talking about just a minute ago, he actually is photographed with Eleanor Roosevelt. Eleanor Roosevelt came to Oak Ridge in the 50s,
Oh
actually.
wow.
Wow.
So kind of a connection with the first ladies. Jackie Kennedy also visited Oak Ridge when JFK was a senator. So it's always kind of been a big deal with
Oh, for
big name
sure.
scientists, and it still is today, actually. Y12 is still in operation. K25 doesn't exist anymore, but Y12 um, is still very much a functioning facility for a variety of things. It's also attracting, we've got new nuclear power plants and companies coming to the area. So it's much more of a scientific
Yeah.
hub than most people think of, especially when you just think of kind of a smaller town in
Yeah.
Tennessee.
I
Yeah.
don't think I would have associated Tennessee with to be like a big scientific place for people to convene. You just automatically assume like universities and
I will
laboratories,
say
but I guess
it's
maybe
not made
that's
obvious.
my city mentality. That could just be my city
I
mentality,
mean,
which is not a
I
good not a good thing.
I lived in Tennessee for 5 years. I lived in Memphis mostly. And because I feel like Memphis and Knoxville are worlds away from each other in terms of life and recreation and things like that. And I feel so disappointed that I lived in the state for so long and I didn't know about this. I didn't know Oak Ridge existed until we began researching for this. So to know that it's still carrying on the legacy it began, it really is something. And I feel like the women that made this happen would be incredibly proud of it.
Yeah,
Have you had
absolutely.
a chance to speak to any of the women that worked on this, or?
Unfortunately, no. Most of the ladies have since passed away. But I have had the opportunity to talk with some people who were related, especially her name's Emily. Her dad he's passed away, Ed Westcott, and he was the photographer for the Manhattan Project, basically. So especially Oak Ridge.
Mm.
Anytime that you see a picture of Oak Ridge during that time, it's an Ed Westcott photo. And that's because also too, he was like the only person in the secret city allowed to have a camera. Um, she actually enlightened me because it's something I didn't know, because I just knew people weren't allowed to have cameras and he was the only one.
Mhm.
But I guess you could rent a camera if you had a birthday party or something, you could rent a camera and check it out, take pictures, but then you had to turn it back in. They would develop it and then analyze the photos
Mhm.
and give them back. So
Jeez.
making
Basically making sure you're not using the camera for
Yeah,
any,
anything wrong.
malintent. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. Kind of like censoring a letter, which I
It
assume
is.
that
Yeah.
also
It's like,
happened.
yeah.
yep,
I
yes,
would imagine the
definitely.
censoring was pretty strong in and out of,
Mm.
for letters in and out of Oak Ridge.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They read your letters. I mean, there was nothing getting in and out. No, yeah, you were very much monitored.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if you, that's another interesting dynamic too, is because some of the ladies were like sort of not spies like for the other side, but spies for the United States government basically.
Mhm.
So that's like an interesting dynamic of a way to make friends. You never really knew who was listening. So there were some ladies who reported back. It was so I think this is so fun too. It was a fake corporation in Knoxville. It was Acme. So
Oh,
Acme. And so like and that was also, to hide everything,
yeah.
you keep everything secret. But yeah, you had, you never knew like if you all of us were sitting here talking, I wouldn't know if I was just accidentally said, yeah, I work at whatever doing this
Yeah.
and that. And I wouldn't know if maybe you were gonna go turn me in and then
Mm.
you would, be
Yeah.
fired and sent away.
Right.
So, you know,
Which is interesting because I read in our research about there was a woman who one of her neighbors was part of the project, who lived in Oak Ridge, and apparently she talked too much, and she was just gone the next day, and they said, oh, she died from moonshine poisoning.
I love that. I've
She was
not heard
just
that
gone.
article.
That
Yeah.
was
Yes.
She
one
just
of the
disappeared.
it's odd the things that stick with you when you're reading, but like that really stuck with me. I was like, oh my God, she talked too much.
It's quite
And then all of a
haunting,
sudden she
actually.
was
That's
gone. It's
why.
got a very like mafia feel to it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, she's gone now. Oh, she's
She's gone.
she's just gone.
I love that about the moonshine poisoning. What an interesting
Yeah, what an interesting excuse
That's
to,
it's just a very specific, like a very specific
yeah,
excuse. Like, oh, she had bad moonshine and she died last night.
like that's quite shocking.
Yes.
uh yeah, that is really interesting. And also interesting because well, one of my favorite stories it involves alcohol. In the Secret City, you weren't allowed to bring it in, and there was really only like one bar type thing, and it was just beer. And of course, alcohol, loose lips, get you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
didn't want you to be bringing it in, but women were the smugglers,
Of
and they
course.
would put them in the underneath the babies in the strollers. They'd put them in dirty diaper bags because nobody's going to look through that.
Yeah.
Put them up in their skirts and things because, they weren't going to check that either. So the women were the smugglers. So maybe somebody would have gotten some moonshine in there for sure. But what an interesting excuse. That's hilarious. But yeah, people
Right.
you'd just be gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just gone.
Hmm.
I want to kind of go back to the cookbook again because that's very interesting to me that's kind of where they pulled their resources almost.
Hmm.
Was the cookbook originally is it originally from the 1940s? Is it from the war era? Or was it put together like after the war and then published after with their recipes?
Yeah, it was
I love cooking, so
it
this
was
is very
compiled
interesting to me.
long
Hmm.
long after the war.
Mhm.
Yeah. It was, I could tell you, 2015.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's
wow.
relatively new. It's 10 years old. Okay, it's relatively new.
Mm-hmm. But it was the 43 Club is what they called themselves that
Right.
completed it. And they were the ladies who lived and worked in the Secret City in 1943, 1944, 45. And so a lot of the recipes are from
They're
that
wartime era recipes. Yeah.
some of the recipes are from their children.
Okay.
Colleen Black is one of the ladies of the 43 Club, and she provides a lot of recipes. She also had several children, so some of them also have recipes
Hmm.
in the cookbook. But no, it's wasn't published back then. What's Cook in Los Alamos, which is also another cookbook that you can't really get your hands on. I got a PDF copy from the Los Alamos National Lab, actually.
Wow.
And it was 1955, so it's much older, but
Right.
also from ladies who were living and working in the area during that time.
Right, right. So
Uh,
the the recipes, can you get them online, or is the cookbook only available for purchase in the museums? In the
Cooking
museum?
Behind the Fence.
Yes, cooking behind the
Uh,
fence. Sorry.
Yeah, beyond what you can see on my socials,
Hmm.
no, they're not available online. It's just for
In the
purchase.
Just for
book.
purchase.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which
Okay.
I think we're going to have to do, honestly, because I'm so intrigued about
Oh yeah.
what's in here and what these people shared with each other and then with their children afterwards. Um, Something else that we read about during our research really stuck with me was that obviously these women did not know what they were helping to build. Um, and then weren't they gathered and told after the bomb had dropped what they had been
Oh
doing?
yeah.
And I believe I read a quote that was, I'm really glad I helped end the war and that my husband can come home. But I'm also grappling with the fact that I just had a hand in building this huge thing that must have been such a conflicting emotion. I think,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I know what quote you're talking about,
yeah,
and I think that was pretty much the sentiment with
Hmm.
everyone who worked on the project, especially those who were not in the know the whole time and, found out. Um, they were very much grateful that the war was over. They understood that it was a necessary thing, but also uh, that's a very difficult thing, yeah, to like grapple with is,
yeah,
it very much was devastating, and tragic,
for sure, yeah,
but they very much understood it was important and that it was just a necessary thing, but
yeah,
it's also something that is one of the other aspects of Oak Ridge, especially that continues to this day, of very much honoring the work that was done there and the importance of it and the necessity of it, but also very much embracing a kind of call for peace, and very much how humbling it was for
yeah.
people to understand. I'm not sure that's really a hard thing to put into words,
No,
honestly.
yeah,
Yeah, they didn't know until the bomb was dropped. And there's the famous photo there of them holding up the war ends
yeah,
Right.
papers that was taken in Jackson Square.
Hmm.
And it was excitement. Everyone was excited. And then it sort of hit everybody that Oak Ridge built the bomb, or
yeah. They had a
was
hand
one of
in
Right.
the
this.
places where they built this bomb.
Yeah,
I
So
would imagine there's some sort of PTSD with that. You have to sit with that and live with
yeah.
that.
You've got to be alone
And
with that for the rest of your life,
yeah,
but
because you can't really
also,
tell people, even after the fact, you can't really go out and
yeah,
say, "Oh yeah, I
I did
did
it.
this. I did this. I was part of this."
Yeah,
Because then, would they look at you funny? Would they say, "Oh my God," would they thank you or would they look at you funny? it could go either way. So I imagine they just kept quiet about it unless they were amongst themselves,
Yeah,
unless the women were amongst themselves.
when could they talk about it
Yeah.
post-war? Like, did operations cease immediately after the bomb dropped, and then they were told, yes, you can go now? Or was it like a waiting period between the bomb dropping and then them being allowed to start
Right.
discussing what happened?
It was I was very much a process,
Mhm.
for sure. The gates didn't technically open into Oak Ridge for another year, at least. I believe
Mm.
it was 1946. I
Wow.
hate that I don't know that off the top of my head. But I mean, the gates didn't even technically open for outsiders to come in,
Right.
until, you know, a while after. So,
I'm
uh,
not surprised, truly,
No,
but
yeah.
not at all.
Uh,
I'm very impatient and I would be like, okay, it's done, get me out.
uh,
I
yes,
having to hold that, I'm not great at that whole thing. Um,
me neither.
so I would personally, I would have been very much, okay, we did it. Can I start yapping now? That must have been insanely difficult. And
I
I'm
would have
assuming,
struggled.
yeah. And I'm assuming a lot of
Yeah.
these women had moved away from home in order to do this, and then they're essentially gated in and can't tell their parents
Right. You know,
anything.
it's over now. I'm gonna be home soon, or
And then it's another year until they can.
right.
But it's good that these women could go and visit. They were allowed a sense of freedom,
Yeah.
which is why when reading about this part of it specifically, it wasn't as daunting. When I read about Los Alamos, I felt this very heavy weight on my chest, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God,
Los
these
Alamos gives
poor."
you a very dark feeling about
Yeah.
it, which,
Whereas this,
yeah,
it seemed quite obviously they worked extremely hard, but at least they had some freedom and some sense of friendship. Reading about
right.
Los Alamos, it seemed that they were at each other all the time, like fights, infighting. Whereas this, it seemed that they all had genuine respect for one another
Yes.
and what they were doing.
There's the word. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to continuing to dig into Los Alamos a little bit
Okay.
more. But that's been one of the most interesting things about comparing the two cities is because it is wildly different. I mean,
Yeah.
not only um, you know, sort of that military feel, really. Oak Ridge did have that, but not quite as much as like from what I gather in Los Alamos. They talk about their housing. I mean, it was very military, very, like a base,
Yeah.
as we
Hmm.
were saying. And Oak Ridge seemed more community, uh, fun times. I haven't really come across too much about Los Alamos where people were having a really good time. I know
Right.
Oppenheimer threw some pretty good parties with some stiff martinis. So I mean, they did definitely have some fun, I think, but it was very much more. Not that Oak Ridge wasn't serious; it was very serious,
Yeah.
and they very much took their work that way.
Right.
Mm.
But Los Alamos was v just seemingly to me very, very more militant, very different.
Hmm.
And I think that was partially due to it was a kind of a different level almost of work
Hmm.
there. Uh, so
I would imagine Oppenheimer being on the premises at Los
Oh,
Alamos also
yeah.
brought a different feel to being
Mm.
there. You know, he
right,
Yeah.
he must have
yeah.
had this booming presence about him. I can
Mm.
imagine he just brought like a very strict sense of we have a job to do to the Los
Yeah.
Alamos property.
Oh yeah, I think so for sure. Um, Now Oppenheimer did visit Oak Ridge,
He did.
however.
I would
So
imagine that was my next question. Did
Yeah.
he ever visit?
he did. The famous photo that you always see of him sitting there with his, cigarette, that was taken by Ed Westcott in Oak Ridge when he was visiting. It was taken
Okay.
at the Alexander Guest House, which is where people stayed when they would come in from out of town or if they were waiting on housing.
Hmm.
So yeah, he did visit. but Project Y, which was what Los Alamos was kind of referred to, Oak Ridge was Project X. It was ultimately, of course, where they assembled the bomb and where the Trinity test occurred, testing the first atomic bomb, the first thing ever dropped. So it was a little bit more stiff, yes, I believe.
Yeah, a little bit
Like
more
his
serious.
martini, I guess.
Yeah. As he should, doing all that work and subjecting people to building, such a thing. But this has been so interesting to learn about, especially in comparison to, because I feel like, not that Oak Ridge has been forgotten, I feel like it should be spoken about more. And I'm so glad that we have done this, because when you think of this subject, you straight away go to Los Alamos. You don't,
Yeah.
this wasn't on our forefront until this. So I'm really glad and happy
Yes.
that we have done this. And, you obviously should keep going and keep cooking from this book, because it's excellent content. We have been enjoying it thoroughly.
Oh, absolutely. And I have
Thank you.
I have a question for you. Do you have a favorite recipe from the cookbook?
I do actually, and it's mostly because of the story. And also
Okay.
this particular lady has shown up in the other cookbook too, Oak Ridge Cooks.
Okay.
And so she's just kind of interesting in general, but it is called the Taylor Road Cheese Shuffle, and it is a cheese souffle.
Ooh,
And
you got me.
again, I'm not like a chef or anything, so
Mhm.
I've never made a souffle before, and I was so excited when I made it for the first time with the American Museum of Science and Energy. They were doing a video, and it was like, it came out of the oven. It's a souffle, and it's like it worked, but she called it the Taylor Road Cheese Shuffle, and she lived on Taylor Road in Oak Ridge with like 6 other ladies. And she recalled kind of that they like to make fun of French words. So that's why they called it a shuffle. And these people,
So funny.
yeah, I know, how
I like
cute, right?
that.
And they said mercy buttercups. And I just thought that just really brings
That's adorable.
life
It's so cute.
these people that were living and working there, and these women. It's like so
That's so
real.
cute. I love that.
Adorable, right?
It brings such a sense of normalcy. And I think,
Yes.
they
Yes,
needed that during this.
absolutely.
So
But there's just so many fun stories in this cookbook, and that's just one of my top favorite ones and favorite recipes. I have also made a lot of weird ones.
oh
Beef
yeah,
tongue
what's been the weirdest one?
Well, actually, most recently, and I haven't even put it out there yet, but beef tongue was weird. I don't know why when I do these weird ones, I don't think about it. I didn't realize that the beef tongue was going to be like this giant tongue, like
They're
as big as,
huge.
and that
Ooh.
it would have taste buds on it. I don't know why I didn't think about it.
Oh,
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
cringing. Oh my
Yes.
goodness.
okay.
Did you
Yes.
eat it? Did you eat it?
I did eat it, and
It was
actually,
bad?
it wasn't. It was actually pretty good.
Oh,
Okay.
I would
surprising.
say great, but the thing that I haven't put out there yet, which this was just last week, I did a beef heart.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
Mm.
different.
very.
How did that go?
It went. Mm, mm.
Mm, yeah.
Uh, so
Mm.
it was actually, it was really good, actually. I actually really liked it. It was actually really tasty. That one came from the Los Alamos cookbook, but
Mm.
it was, and again, this is why I'm like, I don't know why I didn't think about this being, it's a heart.
It's gonna be a
You
bit
know,
flippy.
Yeah.
I had to devein it. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Like a heart surgeon.
Okay.
yes, it had like aorta looking things in it.
Oh,
I mean, and when I de-thawed it, which I was telling people for forever, I have a beef heart in my freezer. That is weird. Well, weird for me. I'm sure some people it's not. But anyway, open up the bag, and I mean, it was like an IV bag coming, and when it de-thawed, and I was thoroughly disgusted by having to do the veining.
Yeah.
But
Open heart surgery in your
actually,
kitchen.
In
Yeah.
your kitchen.
oh, it was. That's perfect.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
exactly. But it was
No,
good, actually. I would probably eat it again if someone else did that.
if
Someone
someone else
else did
did
all the
the
hard
prep
work.
work,
Yeah,
I would eat it. Yeah, I
yeah,
agree with that.
I'm sitting here
yeah.
cringing. Meanwhile, Italians will eat the strangest things. So, I mean, my mother eats tripe. I
Okay.
can't really
I
sit here
don't.
and
No, I'm
balk
not.
at it.
Not a big tripe. I've tried it
Neither
one
am I.
time.
Neither am I.
No, I can't do liver either. So I think you're extremely brave to do
Oh
the heart
yeah,
and the tongue,
and the tongue.
especially.
I would
Yes.
stick with the cheese shuffle.
Yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah.
I
I
would
would.
stick with the
I
cheese
would
souffle.
stick to the souffle personally.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's
I
more
would
my
I
vibe.
would too. Or
Absolutely
any
agree.
of the desserts. Any of
Oh
the
yeah.
Oh yeah,
those
yum.
are always
Okay,
a
Gabby,
winner.
we'll skip the main
We'll
courses and
skip
we'll
the
go
mains and go straight for the desserts.
straight to
Yeah,
these ladies' dessert.
absolutely. Yeah.
But I had a blast. This was
We
so
had a
much
great time.
fun, and I'm so glad we got to learn about this.
Me too.
Oh, thank you
And
guys so
you are
much.
just delightful.
You are. You're so
Oh, you
Really
sweet.
guys are
are.
too. Thank you. I love your guys' podcast. It's so great.
Thank
Aw,
you.
thank
Thank
you.
you so much for having me on here, and I'm glad y'all enjoyed it. And again, I'm so glad to continue to share untold stories of these women and to talk about Oak Ridge, Tennessee, because it is kind of in itself, a lot of people don't know about it, but I love learning about these ladies. And I'm going to tell you, it's strange to say, people say, oh, well, what do you do? It's like on the side. And it's like, here it is. It's kind of hard to describe, but I'm like, yeah, I read a lot of those obituaries, but there's I hope some, like far from now, someone, or long from now, I should say, writes an obit as interesting and sweet as what some of these ladies have. They go into detail.
Hmm.
I'm really hoping that someday, um, I would like to have like a volume 2 of the cookbook and add in some of this additional information that I've learned about these ladies, all from things that their family have written about them when they passed. And they lived fascinating lives and had fascinating hobbies. And I just have thoroughly enjoyed doing this and can't wait to do more.
Thank you so
That's
much for
so great.
joining us,
Thank you so
Sarah.
much.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. We will catch you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.